Hello there ladies and gents, you're very welcome back to the channel Marky's Herps. Today I am going to read to you a care sheet I found online for Taiwan beauty rat snakes. It's kind of paraphrased, I edited it a little bit, but I'll provide the link down in the description below if you want to go and check out the source material itself. I do not claim this to be my own care sheet by any stretch. Anyway guys, let's get into it. The Taiwan beauty snake is in some ways a typical rat snake. They are a long and slender species which are alert and capable of fast movement. This in itself has led some to believe that they are a nervous serpent. In my experience, this is far from the truth. All the Taiwan beauty snakes that I have dealt with were not necessarily nervous, as they were inquisitive. If you are confident in handling snakes, you should have no issues dealing with this species. When handled at least 2 to 3 times a week, they settle down and are not as flighty as when they are first handled. They typically find a suitable spot on the handler, anchor themselves with their tail, allowing the head and the rest of the body to explore the surrounding areas. Average size is anywhere from 7 to 8 feet in length and weighing about 3 pounds or so. Due to this size and activity level, they need a large enclosure. Personally, I would not use anything less than a 100-gallon reptarium habitat. Ideally, a 180-gallon enclosure would be the best. These measure out to be approximately 72 inches by 25 by 25 inches. It is not an issue whether you use acrylic or glass when housing, but the drawbacks to glass are the weight of the enclosure itself, and they will not flex as much as acrylic will. Acrylic will scratch easily, which can occur from an exuberant snake knocking over branches. Taiwan beauty snakes are found where the name implies, Taiwan. Therefore, as keepers we should try to replicate their natural habitat. Most of what I have studied of their natural environment states it as being a forest type region. While they are primarily seen in forested areas, they also have been found in open woodlands, swamps, suburban areas and even rural countryside barns. Given such a wide range of environments, it may be hard to decide which would be the best substrate. Personally, I have always gone with bark from a home improvement centre. Quite a few consider this dangerous due to ingestion hazards, etc. I have personally been using it for years and never once had any issues with mites, ingestion or any disease being introduced to my animals. It works just as well if not better than the pet store brands and is about half if not less than half the cost of the reptile barks. As with many forest dwelling snakes, they are arboreal but will go to ground when hunting. Their main sources of prey in the wild are rodents. They have also been known to take birds and their eggs. Hatchlings mainly feed on lizards and tree frogs. In captivity, however, simply feed the appropriately sized mouse or rat and they will be happy. Taiwan beauty snakes seem to prefer smaller prey items, so multiple smaller meals are advised. In other words, instead of feeding one medium rat, feed 2 small rats instead. When feeding, I highly advise you remove the snake from the enclosure and place it into another receptacle of some type. A trash can, bucket with a lid, anything as long as you are not feeding in the enclosure. The reasoning behind this is that the snake could soon associate the opening of the enclosure with feeding and you will get a handful of teeth. Temperatures for this snake are still quite debatable due to such little information about their habitat in the wild. In my experience, I have always given them a gradient of at least 10 degrees between the cool and warm side. I usually shoot for a basking spot of about 85 degrees Fahrenheit and leave the cooler side at about 75. Most of my beauties come from the western part of the island, which is primarily wet and tropical. I keep the humidity in the enclosure at about 70% at all times. Daily misting in the morning allow the enclosure to dry out during the day and easily maintains this humidity. Presuming most of the snakes purchased today are in fact wild caught snakes, it is better to have them examined immediately after purchase by a vet who is qualified to treat herps. For lighting, I use a regular fluorescent shop strip light purchased from most hardware or home stores. I place a ceramic heating element at one end of appropriate size that will maintain the 85-degree hotspot. Since the Taiwan beauties are diurnal snakes and very active during the day, I like to provide them with a regular daylight and nighttime cycle that match the outside environment. Decorating the enclosure is not a huge undertaking in itself. You need a large water bowl that they can't knock over during their excursions. You must also provide hides, one on the cool side and one on the warm side. Being an arboreal snake, we definitely want to provide a lot of climbing apparatus. Personally, I use sandblasted grapevine and artificial vines. Place a lot of plastic plants throughout the enclosure to offer the snake a sense of security. This will benefit their psychological behaviour in the end. I do not recommend trying living plants. Taiwan beauty snakes can be a demanding reptile to house, but in my opinion they are also one of the more interesting snakes to own. They are constantly active and curious to discover things within their environment, so if you're tired of owning the same old colubrids, then I would definitely suggest getting one of these snakes, as they will undoubtedly bring you many years of enjoyment. Okay guys, so that was a lifted care sheet that I paraphrased and edited, and again I credit the blog user and the author of that for the source material, and I'll provide a link, as I said in the beginning, down below in the description, so all credit goes to him. I do not claim that this is my own care sheet. This is all someone else's care sheet. I just thought it would make an interesting video and would serve a nice topic over the backdrop of some footage. I just want to pick a bone or two with the care sheet though. He mentions that feeding outside of the enclosure is of pivotal importance, and while I agree with this to an extent, I have stopped doing this myself. I done this for easily, I'd say about 6 or 7 months with 2 corn snakes and a gopher snake, 2 gopher snakes actually, and I found that they were all really flighty when they start coming into teenage age or crossing over the yearling mark. When they were younger, for whatever reason, it was easier to switch them onto food when they were out of the viv. The stress subsided and they immediately just switched onto the food. But when they became older, ironically, I found Brazen definitely wouldn't tolerate it. He just wanted to eat in the privacy of his viv. Yadun I could still do it with now if I wanted to, because she's just an absolute puppy dog of a snake, but I just don't feel the need to, because she is such a puppy dog anyway that I know she won't bite me with any malicious intent. And I did it with Smuggler for ages as well, but again, Smuggler or Corn Snake I could do it anyway. So again, in the video I just want you to go back and look at the footage, and you notice that there's a snake, a mouse in the front left, the left foreground of the camera shot, just resting on a bit of cork bark. And the reason why I have it there is because I'm trying to train this new snake to drop feed. It will not take a mouse. I've fed it twice so far and it won't take unless it's waggling in front of its face basically. So I'm trying to break the association with motion, because these are highly dependent on vision and are really sight oriented. You know, with my other snakes, they're not so bad. They'll poke their heads out and I can move about the room and they won't be really stressed. They won't go back into their hides. They'll kind of just watch what I'm doing. But this one, as soon as it sees a twitch from me, it ducks its head back in. So I'm trying to break the motion eyesight trigger of stress by training it to drop feed, and I believe it will happen eventually, because she's really interested in food anyway. So if she's highly food driven, she will eventually take it drop fed when she gets hungry enough. So that's just one thing, the feeding, and the fact that he had wild caught snakes. He talks a lot about wild caught snakes, so you know they don't really have that little bit of domestication anyway. So I think maybe if he was getting feed response bites, they could have been just plain old bites, as well as maybe a little bit of food response in there as well, and maybe 1 or 2 slip-ups with his handling etiquette. I don't know. But I don't think feeding them outside the viv, I mean a really fast, really stressed colubrid, arboreal colubrid, you're going to try and take out of the viv, one of the fastest snakes on the fucking planet nearly, you're going to try and take out of the viv and feed and wave a mouse in front of it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then try and handle it back into the tank. It's a headache. It's a disaster waiting to happen, and I would not recommend it. Feed inside the viv for this snake. He was absolutely spot on about needing more furniture. I need to get more furniture and a lot more kind of foliage cover, because there's a lot of dead space in the Viv that the snake just won't cross the threshold of. And I can perfectly see what they mean about needing a lot of furniture for their mental state. It provides a lot of security. He got the personality spot on. While this snake is shy, she is definitely inquisitive, and she will poke her head out and she will sniff around, and when food comes in she'll be curious to get to it and smell it. And she hasn't ate it yet in a drop feed fashion, but she's definitely curious anyway. She's willing to meet me halfway basically, whereas other snakes will be just pure stressed out and they won't give you any kind of leeway, or they won't meet you halfway with regards to settling in. They'll just stay in their hides. But I think she'll settle in quick enough, to be honest. And his handling notes were spot on. A bit of confident handling. Just make sure you're acting as a girl I talked to on Facebook and on Instagram. She said, act like you're one big tree for the snake. Move slowly and deliberately, and just provide a frame, a steady frame, a supportive frame for the snake to climb around, and handle it confidently and surely. And they are handleable, at least thus far anyway. No waving your hand in front of its face, no erratic movements. Try and keep people out of the room, at least for the first few times of you handling, and just go in and grab the fucking snake, man, and pick it up. Don't dilly-dally. Anyway guys, that's me, your boy Mark. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment down below, and hit that big red button to subscribe. If you have it handy, take it twice. Good luck.